Black Belt asked a black janitor's son to spar for fun. What happened next left everyone speechless. When a cocky black belt calls out the quiet janitor's teenage son for a sun spar, expecting an easy ego boost, the gym watches in shock as the boy reveals a hidden past and teaches everyone a lesson they will never forget. The advanced class dragged past its usual end, bodies tired, breaths sharp, but no one dared complain. The drills kept running, and the students pushed through each command. At the back wall, the janitor's son swept with slow, steady strokes. His head stayed down, his steps stayed light. He moved like he wanted no one to notice he existed. Most students glanced his way, then looked off fast. It was easier to pretend he wasn't there. But Sensei Brad didn't pretend. His eyes caught the quiet rhythm at the wall. A smirk formed, loud even before he spoke. "Hey, broom kid!" His voice cut through the room like a slap. A few students laughed right away. Others copied the laugh a beat late, unsure, forcing the sound out to stay on Brad's good side. The boy answered without looking up. "No, thank you, sir. I'm working." His tone held no edge, no challenge, just calm. Brad stepped forward as if he owned the air. "Hear that? No, thank you." He twisted the words into a joke. It must be hard doing real drills when your biggest fight is a mop bucket. Laughter rose again, louder this time. Some students looked at the floor as they laughed. They knew it felt wrong. Brad wasn't done. "Maybe we should teach you some real moves before you grow up sweeping floors forever." He puffed his chest when the room responded. He liked being the loudest in a quiet moment. Marissa shifted forward from the line. "Sensei, maybe we should." Brad cut her off fast. "Stay in your rank, Marissa." His tone snapped like a belt. She stepped back, jaw tight, eyes narrowing but silent. Rank held power here, and Brad loved using it. A quiet tension crept across the room. Students straightened. A few stopped packing their gear. Even their breathing changed. Brad's voice had crossed a line, and dojo etiquette pulled everyone tighter. Brad walked closer to the janitor's son. His steps grew heavier, on purpose, inviting everyone to watch. He stopped right behind the boy and tapped his shoulder with 2 fingers. Light, but public, meant to show control. The boy froze, not like he was scared, but like he chose stillness. His feet didn't shift. His balance didn't sway. The broom stayed in his hand, steady. Whispers moved through the crowd. "Did you see that? Why'd he freeze like that? What kind of stance is that?" Brad leaned in. "Come on, kid. Show us some janitor footwork." His voice cracked with mockery. The boy spoke again, calm but firm. "I said no thank you, sir." Brad scoffed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't be scared. Give us a show." His smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. He wanted control, and the boy's quiet tone pushed back without trying. The room felt smaller. Power imbalance thickened the air. Students shifted toward Brad without meaning to, like the group instinctively formed a tribe around the loudest ego. The boy stayed alone, at the center of it. Marissa watched his posture closely. Something in that stillness made her breath catch. His weight rested perfectly. His shoulders carried zero tension. His eyes stayed lowered, but his balance said something else entirely. Then he lifted his head, slow, controlled, calm. His eyes met Brad's for the first time. Nothing bold, nothing scared. Just steady like a rule had been reached. Brad's grin tightened. "A kid," I said, "get over here." He stepped closer, daring him to move. "Let's have some fun." The room stopped breathing. The broom stayed in the boy's hands, unmoving, but that stillness was no longer quiet. It was charged. Students looked from Brad to the boy, sensing something they couldn't name. Marissa felt it strongest. Something hidden, something trained, something Brad was too arrogant to see. The boy inhaled once, slow and controlled. Brad waited for fear, but the boy's calm only grew, and the tension reached a point where everyone knew the next breath would break it. The nights always looked the same for Elias and his father. Once the last class ended and the voices faded, they entered the dojo with quiet steps. Marcus pushed the gear cart. Elias carried the mop bucket. They moved like a team that didn't need words. Elias swept the mats while students packed up around him. Most walked past without speaking. Some nodded out of habit, but their eyes slid away fast. Elias kept his head down and worked the corners first, the way Marcus taught him. "Stay calm, just work." Marcus said it almost every night. The name Raina Porter floated through the gym sometimes, whispered by older members. Once a legend, once impossible to beat, but time had swallowed her memory. Elias never said he was her son. He never talked about the day she collapsed mid-training. He kept that weight buried, a silent place inside him that he never touched. He avoided the mats on purpose, even when they were empty, even when the space felt like it called to him. He swept instead, tracing slow lines across the floor. At one point, he dragged the mop bucket aside, and his feet shifted with a smooth rhythm, too smooth for accident. Marcus noticed and said, "No training tonight. We're just cleaning." Elias nodded, sealing the promise again. Two older students watched him from near the water rack. One whispered, "Isn't that the janitor's kid?" Elias didn't react. He only kept moving, quiet and steady, like he planned to stay invisible forever. Marcus greeted every student who passed with a gentle nod and a small bow. He did it the same way he had done for years, steady, humble, consistent. Even the youngest white belts bowed back out of instinct. They trusted him. He fixed their loose gear, tightened their pads, and repaired anything that broke in the dojo. If someone ripped a glove, Marcus sewed it. If a locker jammed, Marcus opened it. If tension rose between students, Marcus eased it before it grew. Brad walked past Marcus without bowing, not even a glance. Marcus didn't react. He only said softly, "A respect goes both ways," as if reminding the air, not the man. A few kids waved at Marcus as they left. A brown belt thanked him for helping last week when the locker room hinge snapped. Marcus smiled and said the same quiet line he always used, "I just want the place safe for all of you." Elias watched the exchange from a distance. He saw how his father held the weight of disrespect without pushing back. Marcus lived by calm, steady discipline. He stepped around conflict instead of through it. Once long ago he had trained alongside the fighters here, but he set that life down after Raina died, choosing work over war. That night as they cleaned, Marcus glanced up and caught Brad watching Elias with a tight smirk. Marcus's expression barely changed, but a small frown formed. Just enough to show he saw trouble coming. Brad ended class with sharp, clipped commands. His voice cracked through the room like a whip. "Is stronger, faster." Again, the students followed because rank demanded it, not because they trusted him. He walked the front line with loud steps, making sure every eye stayed on him. When he talked about a strong fighters, he made the words heavy and proud. But his gaze kept sliding toward Elias sweeping in the back. The message was clear even without saying it. Some people don't belong on these mats. A few students shifted awkwardly when they noticed, but no one spoke. Brad's rank pressed their silence down. He bragged about his tournament days the way some people bragged about old trophies collecting dust. Two students nodded along, not sure what else to do. They stayed focused on him, even while their eyes drifted to Elias. They saw what Brad was building and didn't want to be caught in the middle. Then Brad dropped a line he wanted everyone to hear. And not everyone is meant for this level. His chin lifted toward Elias, sweeping quietly. The hit wasn't subtle. Students looked between them again, sensing the tension rising. Brad noticed the eyes shifting and smirked. He liked attention. He liked control. And tonight he found a target who couldn't fight back, or so he thought. His steps slowed. His shoulders rolled back, a showman preparing the next act. Brad had decided Elias would be his lesson for the night. Marissa packed up slower than usual, her eyes drifting toward Brad every few seconds. She knew his tone. She knew the way his shoulders tightened when he wanted an audience. Trouble always followed that posture. She tied her belt neatly, buying time, watching how the energy in the room shifted around him. Her gaze landed on Elias moving a mop bucket to the far corner. Something about the way he shifted his weight caught her attention. The motion was too clean, too smooth, too balanced for a regular kid doing chores. She squinted, studying the line of his stance, the quiet control in his steps. She whispered to a friend beside her, "That kid's not normal." Her friend shrugged. "Brad won't stop tonight." The words carried worry more than certainty. Marissa stepped forward, trying to sense the direction of the tension. Elias kept his head down, but there was a steadiness in him, something she couldn't yet name. She tried to speak up before things tipped too far. "Sensei, maybe leave him be." Brad didn't even look at her. Her focus on "your rank, Marissa." The dismissal hit hard. She bit back her response and bowed her head slightly, not agreeing, just surviving the moment. Rank was power, and Brad used it like a weapon. Still, Marissa didn't retreat far. She moved to stand closer to Elias's side of the room, quiet but ready. She watched Brad's steps, watched Elias's balance, and watched the invisible lines stretching tighter between them. She knew things were about to break. Brad began circling around Elias like he was warming up the crowd. His steps were wide, loud, and full of show. Each pass brought him closer, and each pass pulled more students into a loose half-circle without anyone saying a word. The room shifted from casual cleanup to silent attention. Oh, Elias kept sweeping, slow strokes, careful lines. Nothing rushed, nothing shaken. His breathing stayed even, controlled in a way that made a few students stare harder. One of them whispered, "Why does he stand like that?" Brad raised his voice, letting it echo. "It's just a small spar. Come on." The tone wasn't an offer. It was bait. Elias didn't answer right away. He lifted his eyes instead, a small motion, but it tightened the air around them. His gaze didn't hold challenge or fear, just a calm readiness that didn't fit the moment. Marissa's eyes narrowed. She recognized the stillness now. She'd seen it in real fighters, the ones who didn't need noise, the ones who understood timing before movement, the ones who trained under someone great. Brad smirked, still believing he controlled every piece of this moment. He looked at the students, expecting their approval, expecting the room to back him like it always did. But the tension had shifted. It didn't belong to him anymore. The room hung on a breath as Elias met Brad's stare, calm and steady. Something unspoken passed between them, something Brad didn't understand, and everyone knew the first spark had already landed. Brad called out again, louder than before, "Come here, broom kid." His voice cracked across the dojo like he owned the walls. Students stopped midway through packing their bags. Some glanced at Marissa, some looked at Elias. No one stepped in. Elias kept working. His broom moved in calm, steady arcs. Not faster, not slower, just steady. That calm unsettled the room more than anger would have. It made the tension grow sharp. Whispers started near the back. "Why won't he just do it?" someone asked. Another replied, "A sensei's pushing him on purpose." The tone carried worry, not curiosity. Brad's voice rose again, pushing over their whispers. He needed control. "I said, come here." He puffed his chest and looked around, making sure everyone watched the show he was building. His steps moved closer, each one heavy with ego. Marissa stepped forward. "Sensei, this isn't right." Her voice was steady but tight, like she already knew the answer she'd get. Brad snapped back at her in an instant. "Watch and learn, Lane." He didn't look at her. He didn't need to. Rank shut her down before she could say anything more. A few students backed away, forming a widening space around them. The air felt taut, stretched thin. Brad strutted forward like he was on a stage. He enjoyed the eyes on him, the quiet fear, the power. Elias's broom paused just long enough for a breath. "Sir, please stop." His voice stayed soft, almost too soft for the moment. It wasn't fear, it was restraint. Brad laughed loud enough to echo. "Or what?" He leaned in, expecting the boy to shrink, expecting him to fold, expecting silence he could twist into weakness. But Elias didn't move. He didn't blink. He only held his ground with that same quiet balance. And the room felt the shift, small, invisible, but real. Something in Brad's smile faltered, even if he pretended not to feel it. Elias turned away from Brad without hurry. He held the broom close to his body and stepped toward the far corner, aiming to keep working. The motion was simple, quiet, respectful, but it made every student stiffen. No one ever walked away from a black belt calling them out. Brad stepped in fast, blocking the path with one arm stretched wide. His stance was big on purpose, taking more space than needed. "They want a show," he said, pointing at the students with his chin. A nervous student shook his head. "We really don't." Brad cut him off before the sentence finished. "Oh, quiet. I run this class." The room fell silent again, his voice pressed down like a heavy hand. Elias looked at Brad's arm but didn't touch it. "Let me continue my job." His voice stayed calm, nearly emotionless. No challenge, no challenge, just intention. Brad stepped closer, shrinking the distance between them. He leaned in just enough to test Elias's space, waiting for a flinch. Elias didn't flinch. Instead, he shifted one foot back. Small, precise, controlled. Marissa caught the movement instantly. Her eyes narrowed. "He trains," she whispered. Brad missed it completely. His ego shielded him from subtleties. He kept crowding forward. "Don't act like you're above this. You clean here. That's it." He pushed the last word hard, expecting it to land like a strike. Elias stayed still, not stiff, not scared, still like he was choosing every breath. The students watched the space between them shrink. Brad's arm blocked the path. His presence pressed down like a weight. But Elias's posture didn't break. If anything, it steadied. Another whisper moved through the crowd. Why doesn't he look scared? Elias looked at the floor once, then back up at Brad. I don't want to spar, he said quietly. Please let me work. Brad's jaw tightened, and for the first time a flicker of doubt crossed his face. Brad turned away from Elias for a moment, addressing the students like he was teaching a lesson. Maybe this kid's slow from sweeping floors all day, he said, loud and careless. A few students winced. Others looked down at their feet. No one laughed this time. Elias kept his hands on the broom, but his movements paused. Not big, not dramatic, just paused. The kind of pause that made the room hold still with him. Marcus, across the room fixing a storage latch, heard his son being dragged into the joke. His head lifted fast. His eyes landed on Brad, then on Elias. His expression tightened, but he didn't move yet. Marcus never rushed into fights. Brad kept going, enjoying the uneasy silence. Or maybe his dad should have taught him more than cleaning. He threw the line out casually, but the hit was sharp enough to cut the air. The room went dead quiet. Elias stopped sweeping completely now. A stillness wrapped around him, deep, controlled, full of something the students didn't understand. They sensed it, though. It felt heavy in the air. A whisper slipped from someone near the back. Did you see that? Another whispered. He's holding something back. Marcus finally took a step toward them, slow but sure. He wasn't charging. He wasn't glaring. He just walked with the weight of a father who'd heard enough. Elias didn't look at him. He didn't break his posture. He simply raised one hand, palm open, telling his father to stop without ever turning his head. Marcus froze mid-step. That movement alone sent a ripple through the students. No panic, no fear, just precise control. Brad looked confused for half a second, then covered it with a laugh. He didn't understand what he had awakened. He didn't see the balance, the subtle shift, the change in the air, but everyone else did, and they knew something had just crossed a line. Elias finally turned fully toward Brad. No rush or rush. No sudden motion, just a clear decision in the way he faced him. The broom stayed in one hand, steady at his side. His voice came out calm and even. If we do this, you apologize. The sentence dropped into the room like a stone. Students lifted their heads. Some straightened. Some held their breath. No one spoke. No one had ever heard someone talk to Brad like that. Brad laughed too quickly, too loud, covering his surprise with noise. Apologize? To you? He opened his arms toward the class like he was inviting them to laugh with him. Elias didn't shift, didn't blink, to all of them. His eyes moved across the students, then back to Brad, and to my father. A murmur rolled through the class. A real line had been drawn. A moral one, a public one, and Elias had drawn it with a steady voice instead of force. Brad smirked again, trying to hide the jolt of fear flickering behind his eyes. Fine, he said, shrugging like he was bored. If you can touch me. He tapped his chest with 2 fingers. One touch. That's it. Students exchanged looks. Some whispered. One said he doesn't know what he just agreed to. Marissa's eyes stayed locked on Elias. She whispered, Careful, Sensei. You're not ready. Brad rolled his shoulders, trying to look relaxed, but his gaze kept darting to Elias's feet without knowing why. Something about the boy's posture bothered him. Elias didn't raise his hands. He didn't step forward. He simply nodded once, accepting the challenge like he was accepting a chore. The room held its breath again. The balance of power didn't tilt loudly. It tilted quietly in the stillness of the boy who refused to bow to ego. Brad grabbed a pair of gloves from the rack, snapping them on with big, showy motions. He wanted every student to see the confidence on his face, even if it wasn't as solid as before. He rolled his shoulders, bounced on his feet, acting like this was a warm-up he controlled. Elias did nothing. No gear, no gloves, no stance. He just stood there, broom now resting beside the wall, hands down, posture calm. The simplicity of it made several students exchange quick, uneasy looks. Brad waved him forward. Come on, show me a stance. He said it like he already knew the boy didn't have one. Elias stayed where he was. His feet rested at a natural angle, light but grounded. His shoulders were loose. His breathing flowed steady like he'd already measured every inch between them. Marissa focused hard on that stance. That angle, that weight shift, she whispered. She recognized a pattern she couldn't unsee now. Another student whispered, he looks trained. Brad clapped once, loud and sharp. Don't freeze up, janitor boy." The insult hung weakly this time, not landing with the same force. Too many eyes were questioning now. Too many students had noticed Elias didn't look overwhelmed. Elias inhaled through his nose, slow and centered. The air seemed to settle around him with the breath. Brad started circling him, trying to control the moment again. His steps were quicker now, almost impatient. He wanted movement. He wanted fear. He needed Elias to react so he could feel powerful again. But Elias didn't give him anything. He just followed Brad with the smallest turn of his head, balanced like he had spent years learning to stay rooted. Students watched in total silence. The tension felt like a stretched rope, one more breath away from snapping, and everyone knew that once the spar started, nothing in the room would be the same. Brad opened with a sharp jab, fast and confident. He expected the strike to land clean, expected the boy to freeze like an untrained kid caught in headlights. But Elias stepped back a breath before contact. Not a jump, not a flinch. A simple, precise slide that made the punch cut through empty space. A few students gasped. Brad didn't pause. He swung a body hook next, putting more power into it. Elias shifted again, barely moving more than an inch. The strike missed so cleanly it looked like Brad had punched the air on purpose. Whispers rippled through the room. Brad tried to cover the moment by throwing a quick combo. Jab, cross, hook, each strike faster than the last. Elias drifted out of range with quiet ease, his balance never breaking, his breathing never changing. He wasn't dodging with fear. He was avoiding with measured timing that didn't match his age or role in the dojo. Marissa breathed, "That's elite timing." She said it under her breath, but a few students heard and nodded. Brad grew red with embarrassment. His face tightened. His strikes grew heavier as he tried to reclaim control. Each missed punch slammed the silence harder. Elias didn't swing once. He didn't lift his hands. He didn't even change expression. He moved just enough to stay safe, reading Brad's attacks before the strikes finished forming. Each step felt like he already knew where Brad's foot would land next. Students leaned forward, caught between fear and awe. They had never seen someone move like this. Not a white belt, not a brown belt, not even some black belts. Elias shifted his weight again, smooth and small, staying within inches of Brad, yet never touched. Brad's frustration turned into raw noise, a grunt, a shout, anything to break the calm he couldn't touch. But Elias remained silent, and his silence was louder than Brad's punches. Students leaned in closer now, caught between disbelief and curiosity. None of them expected the janitor's son to last more than a second, but what they were seeing didn't feel like luck or panic. It felt intentional, skilled, trained. One student whispered, "How is he doing that?" Another added, "His balance is perfect." A third murmured, "And look at his breathing. Nothing changes." Marissa stepped even closer, eyes locked on Elias's feet. They moved with rhythm, not reaction. He didn't wait for Brad to swing. He read the movement before it fully began. She recognized the pattern, the quiet mastery in each tiny shift. Brad, in his panic, swung sloppy now, hoping speed would hide his fear. Elias turned his shoulder just enough for the strike to miss clean. His stance stayed rooted, like each step had been practiced 100 times before. Students' eyes widened with every near miss. Whispers spread fast. "Who was this kid?" Another voice said, "He's not just avoiding, he's controlling the whole space." Marissa wasn't even blinking anymore. Her breath caught when she caught a specific rhythm, the glide of one foot sliding at a familiar angle. She whispered almost to herself, I've seen this before." Brad's attacks grew louder, not stronger. He wanted noise to drown out doubt, but every swing made him look more unbalanced. The room saw the shift clearly now. Elias wasn't the one struggling. A sloppy cross from Brad sliced the air, and Elias slid left with a tiny pivot that looked effortless. The crowd murmured again. "He's not fighting back. He's just reading him," Marissa whispered. "This isn't luck. Someone trained him. Someone good." The whole dojo leaned in as the truth started to form, piece by piece, even if they weren't ready to name it yet. Brad's breath came out rough now, louder than his strikes. His shoulders heaved as he tried to mask his panic with aggression. "Stop running," he shouted, voice cracking in a way he hadn't planned. Elias answered with one calm line. "Control your breathing, sir." The class froze. The tone was different now, steady, firm, and holding a quiet authority Brad didn't have. It wasn't disrespect, it was instruction, and that made it land even harder. Brad tried to hide the embarrassment by charging forward. His steps lost structure. His posture fell apart. He threw a heavy strike meant more to hit something than to land clean. Elias stepped offline with a smooth, effortless shift. Brad stumbled past him. Students exchanged wide-eyed looks. They had never seen a black belt miss this badly. Marissa whispered, "He's not fighting, he's avoiding." She understood now. This wasn't a boy trying not to get hurt. This was someone trained to control distance down to inches. Brad tried a high kick, but it was off balance from the start. Elias dipped his head a fraction, reading it before the leg even finished lifting. The kick sailed over nothing and Brad landed shaky. The whispers grew like a rising tide. "He can't touch him. This is bad." Sensei looked scared. Brad clenched his fist tighter, sweat sliding down his forehead. His strikes turned into wild swings, each one weaker than the last. He wanted to regain the room. He wanted his students to see strength. But all they saw was noise, panic, and ego unraveling. Elias stood near him, silent and grounded, breathing slow and even, showing a level of control Brad couldn't fake. Students felt the balance flip. Brad wasn't chasing a victory anymore. He was trying not to lose in front of the whole dojo. Marissa's focus tightened until the rest of the room faded. She wasn't watching Brad anymore. She was watching Elias's feet, how they slid, how they planted, how they shifted pressure from heel to ball with almost invisible precision. Every movement followed a rhythm she knew but hadn't thought about in years. A memory flashed, old footage from her school days, grainy video of a coach teaching timing drills, a woman gliding across a mat like she weighed nothing, the same angle, the same rhythm, the same silent read of every attack. Her breath hitched. "No, it can't be," she whispered. A student beside her glanced over. "Oh, what do you see?" Marissa didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on Elias, studying the pattern that now seemed impossible to miss. She felt her heart jump as the truth pressed closer. On the mats, Brad threw another strike, desperate and off balance. His arms shot out wide. Elias stepped into a soft pivot, brushing past the attack like he had hours to read it. The motion wasn't just smooth, it was familiar. It belonged to someone who once held national titles and taught discipline with a calm that people still talked about years later. Elias shifted again, light as air, guiding Brad into another stumble. Crowd murmurs sharpened. "He moves like a pro. Who taught him? That footwork. I've never seen that here." Marissa whispered the name under her breath, barely audible. Arena Porter, the student beside her, flinched. "No way. That Raina?" Marissa nodded slowly. "He moves like her. Exactly like her." Brad swung again, slower now, face flushed with frustration. Elias slid around the strike with the same unmistakable grace that belonged to the legendary coach. The whispers grew into buzzing uncertainty. And for the first time, the dojo felt the truth rising. Quiet, sharp, undeniable. The janitor's son wasn't ordinary. He was hiding something everyone else had forgotten to look for. Brad's frustration finally broke into raw panic. He threw technique aside and charged full speed, feet slamming the mats with every step. His form disappeared. His control vanished. It was no longer a spar. It was ego, pure and loud, trying to crush whatever it couldn't understand. Students sucked in their breath. Even the ones who usually cheered for Brad stayed silent now. They could see it clearly. He wasn't attacking from skill anymore. He was attacking because he was losing. Elias didn't flinch. He watched Brad come in with calm focus, his body completely still for one perfect second. Then he made a single shift, a tiny step that barely looked like movement. His foot slid half an inch. His weight changed just enough. The whole room felt the shift, even if they didn't understand it. Brad's fist whipped through empty air. He didn't even come close. The force of his own strike pulled him off balance. Elias turned his body a fraction, guiding the momentum instead of resisting it. The motion was too subtle for most to see, but Marissa caught it instantly. Her voice came out in a half-whisper, half-warning. "This is it." Students held their breath as Brad stumbled forward. His footing slipped, his center dropped, his eyes widened as he realized he had lost control of his own movement. Elias wasn't touching him. He was letting Brad fall into his own mistakes. Elias stepped in just close enough to redirect with the softest contact. A brush of his hand, barely a touch. Brad's body tipped. Students gasped. Marissa froze, watching the moment stretch into slow silence. Everything teetered on the edge of impact. Brad falling, Elias steady, the truth about to reveal itself in the most undeniable way. And then the scene cut to the brink, the final moment held in the balance, with the entire dojo hanging on what would happen next. Brad lunged with everything he had left. It wasn't clean. It wasn't trained. It was the desperate charge of someone who felt the ground sliding out from under him and couldn't pull it back. His feet pounded unevenly. His shoulders rolled too far. His fist came forward with more force than control. Elias didn't step away this time. He stepped into the angle. The shift was so small the room almost missed it. His right foot slid forward, just inside Brad's center line. His left heel grounded lightly. His body tilted a breath to the side. It wasn't defense. It was understanding, perfect awareness of where Brad was going to fall before Brad even knew. Brad threw a hook meant to end the moment, but the punch collapsed the second it met Elias's motion. Elias touched Brad's arm with the gentlest redirect, a soft tap barely stronger than a brush of wind. Brad's feet lost their place. His body twisted. His balance broke. The whole dojo heard the thud as Brad hit the mats. The sound cut through the air like a command. Silence locked the room. No one moved. No one breathed. Students who had been leaning forward froze mid-lean. Those who had taken steps back stayed suspended. The whole dojo became a held breath, waiting to see what the boy would do next. Elias took one calm step backward, giving Brad space. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't gloat. He stood with the same quiet stillness he had carried since the beginning, like the fall wasn't a victory. Just a truth, Marissa whispered. That wasn't power. That was skill. Her voice trembled with shock, not fear. A student near her murmured, "She barely touched him." Another added, "The sensei didn't slip, he was redirected." Brad tried to push himself up. His hands shook. His knees wobbled. He looked around the room, hoping to find a friendly face, a student who still believed he had control. Instead, he found wide eyes, stunned silence, and the weight of every missed strike pressing back on him. Elias remained still, watching quietly. Marissa stepped a little closer, her voice soft but sure. "He fights like her." A younger student blinked. "Like who?" "He like Coach Raina Porter," Marissa whispered. Half the room gasped. The name hit like a wave. Raina Porter, the legend, the champion, the mentor whose timing drills became myth, the fighter who moved like wind and taught fighters how to stand in storms. Her name hadn't been spoken loudly in years, not since she passed, but no one forgot her style. And Elias had just revealed every part of it without saying a word. A student said louder, "Wait, Porter, the janitor's kid." Another added, "He moves like those old videos." Exactly, the same. Marcus stepped forward slowly, his eyes on Elias. His expression was calm, but the weight in his gaze showed something deeper, pride mixed with the ache of memory. Students began connecting the dots out loud, their voices low and stunned. He didn't flinch once. He read every strike. "He's trained. He has to be. Is he actually her son?" Brad stared at Elias like the ground had vanished under him. He wasn't angry now. He wasn't mocking. He was scared. Not of being hurt. Elias hadn't hurt him. He was scared because the dojo had seen everything. His authority was slipping through his fingers. Elias bowed lightly. Not a victory bow, not a challenge, just a quiet gesture of respect. It hit harder than any strike could. The room held the silence. The truth was no longer hidden. The janitor's son was the last student of a legend, and Brad's fall was only the beginning. A thick silence clung to the mats as Brad pushed himself upright. His arms trembled. His breath came in broken bursts. He tried to lift his chin like a leader, but the weight of every eye in the dojo made it impossible. His rank didn't shield him now. His belt looked smaller. His voice felt trapped. Elias stood calmly, hands down, waiting without pressure. He didn't stare Brad down. He didn't challenge him. He simply existed with a quiet strength that made the room shift around him. Marissa walked closer, her steps soft but grounded. She studied Elias the way a fighter studies a mystery solved too late. She said softly, almost reverently, "He is her son." The words landed with final certainty. A rustle spread through the students as they accepted it. Someone whispered, "Of course, it makes sense." Another said, "I can't believe we didn't see it." The room wasn't questioning anymore. The truth had settled like a weight no one wanted to ignore. Elias turned slightly to Brad, his voice steady enough to cut the silence. "A strength is not loud." The room listened. "A skill is not a show." Several students nodded at the line. Elias looked across the half circle of faces watching him. "Nah, respect is the point." The words sank in deeper than anything Brad had shouted all night. Marcus watched with quiet pride. He saw Raina's teachings alive in their son, the discipline, the balance, the gentle authority. Elias wasn't performing. He wasn't proving anything. He was reminding everyone what martial arts was supposed to be. Brad finally looked up, his voice cracking under the weight of humiliation. He tried to mask it, but nothing held steady. He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," not a loud apology, not a proud one, a small, real one. The students shifted. For the first time all night, Brad's words didn't come from ego. They came from collapse, from seeing himself through the eyes of the people he had tried to lead by force. Elias nodded once. No gloating, no satisfaction, just acceptance. Brad lowered his eyes, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Then Marcus stepped toward them both. His presence carried calm authority, not through rank, but through the steadiness in his stance. Brad stiffened, unsure what came next. Before anyone could speak, the gym door swung open with a sharp echo. The owner of Cresslin stepped in. Students snapped straight. The shift in the room was instant. Real authority had arrived. The owner looked around slowly, studying the frozen scene. Brad unsteady on the mats, Elias standing calm, the half-circle of students holding their breath. "What happened here?" the owner asked. The question landed like a blade. No one rushed to answer. No one dared fill the silence with lies or excuses, not after what they had just witnessed. Brad opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't speak. He couldn't rebuild the pride that had shattered across the mats. The students watched him, waiting to see if he would try to twist the story. He didn't. He couldn't. The truth hung in the air, quiet, sharp, undeniable. The owner's eyes moved to Elias, then back to Brad. The tension in the room tightened like a rope drawn to breaking. Judgment was coming, every student felt it. And the dojo stood on the edge of a moment that would change everything. The owner stepped fully onto the mats, his eyes fixed on Brad first. The room stayed silent. The tension settled but sharp. Brad stood unsteady, hands low, no pride left to lift him. The owner's voice stayed calm but firm. "Explain." Brad opened his mouth, but the words tangled. His breath shook. It was just, he looked at the students, searching for support. None came. Their faces held honesty, not obedience. A younger student stepped forward. The sensei forced a spar. Another added, he mocked the janitor's son. Their voices were steady, not cruel, just truthful. Marissa stepped forward with a bow of respect toward the owner. Elias avoided every hit. He didn't strike once. Her voice carried weight, clear, simple, impossible to twist. The owner turned to Elias. "Is this true?" Elias nodded once, no defense, no pride, just truth. The owner shifted his attention back to Brad. "This is not how we lead," he said, each word deliberate. "A dojo is held by discipline, not intimidation." Brad's shoulders dropped under the judgment. He didn't argue. He couldn't. Marcus walked toward Elias, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. The touch was soft, but full of meaning. Marcus spoke quietly, but every student heard the pride in his voice. "You handled yourself well." Several students nodded, agreeing without hesitation. Elias shook his head. The statement carried no anger, just clarity. Marissa stepped closer. "You showed restraint," she said, "more than most could." Elias answered. Hurting him would prove nothing. His eyes didn't leave Brad. There was no challenge, only a message, only a message. The owner studied Elias with a new kind of respect, a shift in the way he held his posture. Marcus bowed slightly to his son, a gesture filled with quiet honor. Elias didn't move. He didn't seek attention. He stood centered, not as a victor, but as someone who carried a lesson instead of a triumph. The room took it in. Everything had changed, and everyone knew it. Brad finally managed to stand upright, feet still unsure. He looked around the dojo, the mats, the students, the eyes he once commanded. "I was wrong," he said. The apology came without force, without pride. He forgot what a dojo is for. A few students traded surprised looks. This was the first real humility they had seen from him. A younger student raised a timid voice. "The sensei, will you stop yelling all the time?" Brad swallowed, then nodded. "Yes," he said softly, "I need to." The owner stepped beside him. "You will be reviewed," he said plainly, not a punishment from anger, but from duty. Students watched a leader humble himself, something few had imagined possible. Marissa bowed slightly toward Elias in quiet respect, a gesture that spread through the front row like a ripple. The balance of the dojo had shifted. No noise, no spectacle, just truth. The class began to break apart slowly, the whispers growing soft but steady. Students gathered their bags with new awareness, casting quiet glances at Elias as if seeing him for the first time. The tension had faded, but a heavy reflection settled over the mats. Marissa walked straight to Elias, her posture firm with purpose. "Oh, we need someone like you," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried truth. Elias blinked, unsure. "Oh, for what? To fix the culture here," Marissa said. "People listen when skill is quiet." She held his gaze. "This place needs that." Elias hesitated, looking toward Marcus. The question hung between them. Should he step forward or stay invisible? Marcus nodded once, calm and supportive. "You can help them," he said. Elias turned back to Marissa. "No one gets humiliated," he said. "Eva." Marissa smiled, small but full of respect. "That's why we need you." Huh? Students watched the exchange, drawn by the shift happening right in front of them. Something new was being built, something steadier than Brad's authority, something grounded in the quiet discipline Elias carried. Elias stepped onto the mats again, this time with purpose instead of obligation. He walked toward the center of the room, each step controlled and measured. The students paused mid-pack, watching him without being told to. Brad stood off to the side, quiet and humbled. He didn't try to regain control. He let Elias pass without a word, understanding that leadership now carried a different weight. Elias reached the middle. Marissa bowed deeply to him. A respectful bow, not about rank, but acknowledgement. One by one, the other students followed. Their bows were hesitant at first, then steady. They weren't bowing to a new master. They were bowing to the principle he just reminded them of. Marcus stood by the wall, watching his son with soft pride. The owner stepped closer and said, "Let's rebuild this place right." His tone carried conviction, not ceremony. Elias lowered his eyes, breathing in long and calm. The mats beneath him felt different now, not a place he avoided, but a place he could guide. He didn't take a teacher's stance. He didn't claim a title. He simply stood still, breathing with the same quiet rhythm he had shown all night. Students approached with respect instead of fear. Some asked questions. Some stayed back, unsure but curious. All of them watched him with new understanding. The moment closed on a gentle silence, not empty, but full of possibility, full of change, full of a new standard set by someone who never raised his voice. Elias remained at the center, calm, grounded, ready to guide rather than compete. The dojo didn't feel the same anymore. It felt better. The days that followed moved quieter than before. Students entered the dojo with softer voices, bowing with real intention instead of habit. The drills ran smoother, not because they got easier, but because everyone carried a new kind of focus. Respect settled into the room like steady air. Brad taught differently. He stood straighter, spoke calmer, and bowed more often than anyone had seen. He didn't bark commands. He didn't chase attention. His voice held the weight of someone who had seen himself clearly and decided to change. When younger bells slipped on a drill, he corrected them softly. When tempers rose, he reminded them to breathe first. The owner set a new rule on the wall. Respect first, always. No one questioned it. The students who watched the Spar told the story to others. Parents asked about the night, and students explained what really happened. No one laughed at the janitor or his son anymore. No one looked away when they swept. The culture shifted, small piece by small piece, toward something cleaner than the mats themselves. Elias returned each night with Marcus, carrying the same quiet steps. He still swept, but he also stayed on the mats after the work was done. Sometimes Marissa asked for help with balance drills. Sometimes younger students joined, watching every shift of his feet. Elias taught them how to breathe before moving, how to stay calm when pressure rose, how to stand steady without shouting. Small lessons, simple lessons, lessons his mother had once taught. Brad watched from a distance, learning in silence. He didn't interrupt, he didn't try to lead. He let Elias's quiet control guide the room. One evening, the dojo gathered around Elias without being called. They waited, standing in a loose circle, eyes steady. Elias looked at them with calm understanding. Then he spoke with the soft clarity that had shifted the whole academy. "A belt does not make a master," he said. The students nodded. A loud voice does not make a leader. Their posture tightened with respect. A respect is real strength, and real strength is quiet. The words settled across the mats, simple and true. The dojo bowed. Not to rank, not to noise, but to the standard that had finally returned.